Me.
Eat me.
Oreo, Big Scoop, Cookie Dough Blast, and Sundae. Eat me, eat me!
Storm Alert meteorologist Brittany Beggs, only on Channel 3.
We are just a few weeks away from officially welcoming spring into the Tennessee Valley, and for allergy sufferers out there, that's good news and bad news, right? So we hope it's good news for you this morning, because we have headed up the road to visit with Dr. Susan Raschal at Covenant Allergy and Asthma Care, and I think that we're dressed kind of appropriately. Here you are in your beautiful spring clothing, eager for the better weather to head your way.
Absolutely.
And I'm all dreary and drab and black for those who are going to be sniffling and sneezing this spring.
That's a perfect contrast.
Thanks for letting us come in.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure in your office over the years, you're very accustomed to seeing new patients come your way this time and in the weeks to come who say, I've never had allergies before and I can't stand this, what's wrong? Is that true?
What's interesting about that is a couple of things. When people tell you that they've never had allergies before and they're older, it may not be allergy at all that's causing them to have symptoms. But if someone's had allergy symptoms that's gotten progressively worse, that in fact may be allergy. And start now? Why start ahead of time? It's good to prepare with anything. You know, when you have a recipe, you read through it. When you're planning a trip, you're preparing, which is why we're recommending that people start now to start preparing for what might take place over the next several weeks.
Okay, because...
And the pollen has already started going up, and you can see that. Did you notice that on your cars, the yellow?
Right,
and yes.
The evidence is there.
The evidence is there.
Well, and because I'm sure you're going to correct me here too, but are you, if you seem to have allergy issues in the spring, chances are you're going to also have them in the fall. Is that fair?
Well, maybe, because there's different pollen that comes out at different times of the year.
Okay.
So spring pollen is usually going to be trees that start now. That's what we're detecting. And then grasses will pick up in April, May, June, July, August, September. And then in the fall, that's when you get weed allergy. And people will tell you they're allergic to goldenrod and some other things. And it really isn't goldenrod that they're allergic to. It's more likely that they're allergic to some type of weed, specifically ragweed.
Okay.
And ragweed is ubiquitous and it travels, and I think I may have mentioned this before, is that there are studies that show that one grain can travel, well, up to 400 miles.
Whoa. So
what we're breathing in August and September and October may be what they breathed in Knoxville or other places. You know, imagine that, 400 miles. But the other thing is that a plant can produce 1 billion greens. So one plant of ragweed. So unfortunately, it's a lot. So the problem, of course, is that it causes lots of problems for people, particularly in the fall of the year. But we're now in spring, and we're asking people, get your tails in now so that we can see what it is you're specifically allergic to and then be able to guide you, because we always come up with a customized plan. Because at this office, we offer drops, shots, and tablets
okay, so let's talk
treat.
about that for just a second, because people are thinking, here it is early March, spring officially is the 3rd week of March. If I come in now, am I going to actually get much benefit? The practice has transformed so much over the years. You can help people, if allergy shots is their answer, kind of rush through them to get them a sped up start.
Exactly. So when it comes to allergy shots, there is a build-up phase and a maintenance phase. And that build-up phase can take about 4.5 to 6 months. Or there is something called rush in 2 days. 2 days. So they're here with us for 6 hours one day and 6 hours the next day. And every 30 minutes they get a set of injections for about 4 hours. And then we observe them. And we do that 2 days in a row. And they have gone through their build-up phase and they're ready to start maintenance. Now the beauty of that is it usually takes about 6 months worth of injections before you start feeling benefit. So if you do that rush protocol, that 6 months is more like 2 or 3 weeks, Julie. So now they're going to have,
really feel it.
You'll have benefit.
Okay, there are people who come in and they say, listen, I'll think about it, but I'm not so sure allergy shots is what I want to commit to just yet.
Sure.
You're okay with that, because you can still customize the plan for
Absolutely.
what they want.
Sure, and whenever they want it. That's exactly right. And then the other thing is there are tablets that are dissolvable tablets, but if you read the literature, it'll tell you want to start those tablets either 3 months or 4 months before the season. season, which is the other reason why it's so helpful to start early on, to plan, to prepare, to get in here sooner.
Okay.
And then the other option is that there are drops that dissolve under the tongue, which is a cash option because the FDA hasn't approved them, although there's lots of literature that shows how effective they are. And that also is going to take time to get to the point where you don't need to be on medicines and that you actually have your symptom free from these treatments.
Do people mistake allergies for colds?
Sometimes they do. More often I see bronchitis mistaken for asthma, but not as much for the colds, because cold is usually colored secretions, and to distinguish one from the other, Julie, usually when it comes to allergies, you're going to have clear secretions and itching of your eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, lots of sneezing, typically repetitive sneezing. Those are common symptoms of allergy. And when it comes to the cold, it's usually a discoloration of nasal secretions. Sometimes you'll have those body aches, and you may have an elevated temperature with that. You don't have an elevated temperature with allergies.
I'm sure at dinner parties, they don't do those much now with COVID, but in the past, people would try to pick your brain to see what you thought, like you're part meteorologist, what you think the weather's going to do to predict the pollen season. It was a little bit of a warm winter. We didn't have a lot of cold weather.
That's
Do you
right.
think that's going to make it a little bit more lingering?
Again, if you read the literature, it'll show you that, yes, when you have a warm winter, particularly if you have a lot of rain at that time, then you actually may have a more robust season for pollen.
So
in
get ready.
particular. Yes. And we know that, unfortunately, with rain, it can actually cause more mold spores, and there are some spores that are essentially encapsulated, and with a drop of water, it opens up that little cavity and allows that spore to be dispersed into the air. So rain can be helpful when it comes to pollen because it'll bring it down, but when rain nurtures the soil, then you may have more pollen.
If you're noticing it, and I will just tell you, every time we've talked over the years, she'll always say things like, what we're learning now, what we know, constantly studying on what the latest
Sure.
breakthroughs are,
Yes.
and what's happening around the area. So you get an education besides just the medical help.
Thank you, Julie.
When you come
Yeah.
here, it's Dr. Susan Raschal at Covenant Allergy and Asthma Care, for the time being still housed over here in a beautiful office on Shaliford Road. Phone number and website there on your screen. And stay tuned, keep watching, because when she and I check in next time, we're going to talk about what to kind of watch for, those warning signs, right?
Right,
To
exactly.
see, to know that you're dealing with an allergy problem. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
The Filet-O-Fish is completed with a half slice of cheese. Is its bun half empty or half full? We'd say the latter.